Hello everyone. My name is Hunter, and this is a spoiler-free review of Ted Lasso Season 3. And this season has a lot of high points, which I think some are frankly higher than anything we've ever seen in seasons before, but also a lot of low points, which I also think are a bit lower than anything we've seen in seasons before. And I think this has mostly to do with the fact that there are so many storylines in this season to the point where you wonder if they're all going to have a resolution in the end. And frankly, some of them just don't. Some of them don't have a resolution. Um, a lot of these storylines, you start to wonder what's the point with some of them. Why am I watching this? Because some of them don't really have anything to do with the main overall plot of the entire season. Um, and a lot of the storylines just don't connect at all. They're kind of just their own separate little thing. I think the biggest culprit of this is Keely. Keely Keely's off on her own without any of the people from Richmond, which I think is uh, is a huge detriment to her entire storyline here. I think she should have been with a bit more of the Richmond people. And the reason I'm ragging on Keely's storyline is the fact that Keely's storyline is probably the most we spend on one of these storylines. Because honestly, if you took all of Keely's stuff out, you probably lose about 3 episodes. There's so much of this, and in the end, Keely doesn't really get any character development from this, and the Ted Lasso world doesn't really change because of her storyline either. So you may just start asking, what's the point? And I think a lot of these storylines could have been removed, and probably uh, you could have added more stories for characters that needed character development, like Roy and Jamie, and uh, not really Ted. I think Ted gets a good amount of character development in this season, but definitely Roy and Jamie, I think, deserve more. Um, and then we have Nate. If you probably remember, at the end of season 2, he left Richmond and went to West Ham, and he treated Ted horribly. I don't think his storyline isn't really what I wanted. It also felt a bit disconnected. So you may be disappointed with that. And so you have all these storylines that frankly you may ask why they matter, and they just don't. But the storylines that do matter, they do pretty well. We have an entire storyline with Ted, and we know Ted's been really homesick over the last 2 seasons, and this season is kind of going through all that. The thing with Ted's storyline is that it kind of like plateaus in the middle to the point where you're kind of just wanting something to happen with him, and then near the end it really starts to take off, and it turns into some of the best we've ever seen in the series. Some really like heart-wrenching, good feeling moments from Ted. But despite all that, I did say that there's a lot of high points in this series. The comedy is still good. It's Ted Lasso comedy. uh there's a lot of character development, a lot of really, like, there's a lot of moments that make you think as the watcher as well. A lot of moments that you're just gonna walk away from the episode happy, or you're gonna walk away from the episode just thinking about, life in general, really. And while I did find a lot of frustrations in this entire season, and during the middle of it, I kind of was hoping that this series would end because I was getting kind of with how frustrated I was getting. And so a lot of these storylines kind of conclude though before the last 4 episodes, because in the last 4 episodes everything just goes uphill and it's great. Like, the season starts good, dips down, and then goes straight up to the top because the ending is great. I love the ending. It's my favorite episode of the entire series. I loved it. And the ending definitely saved the show, because in the middle, while I was doing reviews on every episode, we were getting pretty low into the scores there. And so again, there's a lot of that, that usual Richmond, Ted Lasso, good feeling, good natured stuff that happens throughout this. The only thing that's really dragging this entire season down is the fact there's so many storylines that frankly just don't matter. So, I'm gonna give this season a grade, and I did grade every single individual episode throughout the entire season. And when I average all those scores together, I get a 76 for this season. So 76 is pretty good. Those last four episodes really boosted that score up. And honestly, at the end of this season, I'm now hoping that we can see more of the Richmond team because I'm kind of not ready to say goodbye. And so, without further ado, I thank you for watching, and goodbye.